It's a sunny morning in Cape Town. Unemployed women gather for training and edification. The training includes creating a circle of trust where they can share about their lives and challenges with one another. Their stories are of broken homes, ravaged by gangsterism and the failing system on all levels of this dangerous society.
The school is situated in an area called Epping Forest at Elsis River, a very deprived community, a community that's, I would almost like say, infested by trauma and different ways or various ways of deficiencies taking place in this community. You have a situation where our learners come to school and every day, for most of them, it's a situation where there's like a survival mode. We have a situation where your little children, especially your girls, they become victims of the society, where they become victims of gang rape, or where there's a family member involved with abuse, molestation that takes place. And our concern is especially your younger girls. You have situations where children they witness and they observe on a daily basis. So in more ways than one, this is the background and the life world that these learners are familiar with.
Children of the Great Elsis River live in a fear of gangsterism, drugs being very trainable anytime. Gangsters offer you a lot. So to fall into a gang is very easy. It is very comfortable because I get what I want. As community leaders, we need to change the perspective of children, how to live a better life and not a life where they have to be almost like prisoners to the gangsters.
The challenges to the community can be debilitating and seem insurmountable at times. But this is not the only story these communities have to tell. To borrow the words of Peter Block, we begin by shifting our attention from the problems of community to the possibility of community, creating a structure of belonging. Strong communities have social capital, a shared sense of belonging, a valuing of interdependence and hospitality and affection. The MathMoms program recognizes that our communities hold massive potential if only those whose gifts remain on the margin can be given an opportunity.
Dit in ons gemeenskap is daar so geweld en daar is so besige dinge, maar ons kyk af van dit. Van in ons gemeenskap is daar positiewe ding wat ek met ons kinders het. Ons kinders sien uit na die toekoms. Ons sien die kinders uit, hulle het visies om haar eendag uit te kom. En ons as MathMoms, ons sit dit en ons hou hand vas en ons sê kinders, ons gaan daar uitkom. Ons glo dit.
For the past few months, most of us would have been in quarantine or in lockdown in our homes, and it is perhaps too early to say what the long-term societal effects of these long periods of isolation will be. But it is safe to say that they doubtlessly contributed and continue to contribute to what was already before this pandemic being called the pandemic of loneliness. We see the symptoms of this loneliness in the rise of right-wing nationalism, in xenophobic violence in South Africa, in religious fundamentalisms, and in the ways in which people build walls around their identities, their cultures, their homes, and their countries. People are seeking belonging and they're finding it in these what I would call false homes. False, they are false because they're built on fear, they're false because they're trying to control and keep out the unknown. And they are also false because the person seeking belonging will never truly feel as if they belong in these homes, even if they build the walls themselves, because their fear will continue to haunt them. If we are social animals, then our desire to belong lies very deep within us. But why is belonging so important for us? Hannah Arendt locates our apprehensions about belonging in our sense of being superfluous. We live in a system, in a society which creates superfluous things and makes people feel as if they are unnecessary or superfluous. Belonging is important because it makes people feel that their lives matter. And we saw again this year how often the world says to people that their lives don't matter. We matter, to paraphrase Arendt, when we have a place in the world in which our opinions are significant and our actions effective. In other words, we matter, we belong when we are seen, heard, and given recognition. Secure belonging is also a precondition for freedom. We know that we can only freely act and have opinions if we belong somewhere, if we can trust the people around us. Jeremy Waldron links this to having a place to be free, a freedom which is limited by the insecurity many people face in their homes and communities. This insecurity and vulnerability also has a negative effect on our cognitive functioning and on the energy we have available to learn, to think, and to dream. Philosopher Kara Nine sets this out in her work on displacement. For many of the children we work with and their parents, their cognitive and emotional energy goes into everyday struggles to survive and into everyday traumas. These challenges are easier to meet if you have a family or a community, a structure of relationships to support you. If these people feel isolated, the challenges may seem insurmountable. This desire to belong, to be seen, recognized, acknowledged, to be part of something bigger, is also one that sometimes drives young children to join gangs. The reasons why children in the communities where MathMoms works join gangs are complex. Earlier we heard about the family circumstances, poverty, lack of opportunities, overcrowded classrooms that they grow up in. And this should also be situated in a broader context of an extremely racist and classist society with a history of forced displacements and deliberate attempts by the government to break up communities. The history of gangsterism in the Cape Flats is equally complex, but it is widely agreed that it's a legacy of the forced removals in Cape Town during apartheid. The forced removals fragmented families and broke down community networks which previously had kept the more informal gangs in check. What MathMoms offers is an alternative, a response to the need that the children have and the community has, the need for attention, for recognition and opportunities. So they offer similar things to the gangs, but approached with care, with nurturing, with seeing the child not as an instrument to reach further power, but seeing the child for who they truly are and helping them develop into their full potential. MathMoms model creates communities through relationship buildings, but these communities aren't walled. Instead, the MathMom opens her home to every child who needs to belong, every child who needs help with their homework, who needs perhaps a sandwich to eat, or just the safe embrace of an adult who cares.
Organised crime is everywhere. It reaches across the globe and into people's homes. This is why our work starts in the home, in the classroom, in shared spaces. Our intervention responds to the needs of a community and is led by the community because they know this story of crime and violence is not the only to be told about their communities. We want to challenge other communities facing similar challenges to bring about big positive changes with small acts of attention and care. Ordinary actions by ordinary people can have extraordinary consequences.
But I grew up on the Cape Flats with, very direct evidence and experiences of gangsterism and its consequences. And if you were lucky, as I was, to be raised in a two-parent family with very strong Christian convictions, that they also, my parents both exercised in their daily lives, then of course you were to a large extent protected. I could see things when I went to school. I could see the gangsters. I could see the friends dropping out. I could see from time to time abuse and stabbings and all the kinds of horrors that displaced people had to encounter. So the comments that I want to make come from, I suppose, a lifetime of both direct experience but also direct engagement with school turnaround projects. The very first and probably the most successful intervention in the lives of children would be the role of the parents. So if a parent is present, and if both parents are present, and if they set the example, and if they provide the love and the care and attention, if they set the disciplinary boundaries within which behavior is regulated, of course, you have a very good chance of coming out strong despite the surrounding context and so on. But then, of course, the role of the school becomes really, really crucial. And so there's a reason we tend to speak in education law about teachers as parents in their absence, to put it simply, because you really are as a teacher. You are there as a counselor. Your home is not just a place in which the child does homework, it's a place in which you and your mother learn together about how to solve an equation or whatever the case might be. But the social meaning of that, the social repercussions of that is that you in the home, you are learning in the space instead of drifting out of the home, drifting into trouble. And so the role of the school teacher, regardless of your training as a subject specialist and so on, takes on in places where there's a lot of crime, this much broader role, especially in terms of keeping boys in school. And so I've always been fascinated, not just intellectually, that is, not just by the fact that children drop out, but what they drop into. And clearly, especially in the case of boys, you drop into emotionally and socially secure spaces. If the home doesn't provide it, you find that in the gang. The single most important thing I would do is to give children a sense of security, a sense of hope, that understanding of love as not just being some sentimental outpouring of emotion, but a love that is both an embrace, of you as a person, but a love that also expresses itself as boundaries, as disciplinary, guidelines for living the good life, and so on. Now, very often children don't have a mother and or a father like that, but there is an uncle, there is an aunt, there is a teacher very often that plays that catch-up role.
I think 3 words that describe our program best is we're helping people to release their trauma. Then they can build safe attachments, safe relationships with people. And then we use the heart as an app to reach the children. And that we do by the vehicle of maths. We play with the children on the number line so that they can realize that they are dear to someone, that someone cares for them. That's why the woman in the program tells us that they put the children in ICU, in intensive care.
Mathematics education in South Africa. We have one of the lowest rates, pass rates almost in Africa and in the world. So there's a sense of purpose, I think, with wanting to learn mathematics. Unfortunately, you don't often get the sense of purpose in schools, and especially not within the foundation phase, which focuses on the first 4 years of schooling. Ideally, I think that the first 4 years at school is about play, and I'd like the children to be able to be mathematicians at play. Our children have a sense of agency when doing maths. They've got a voice, and that voice is heard. That voice is heard at home. That voice is heard on the playground. That voice is heard on the streets. That voice is heard in the classroom. What you want even more is that the child understands what they're doing, why they're doing, that they're able to see connections, they're able to describe confidently, they're able to explain to a friend what they did, how they arrived at the answer. There are certain skills that you want a child in the first 4 years to build. So my dream, my wish for South African children, for little ones doing mathematics, is that they have a voice, that they found that voice, they can use it, and that voice allows them to be able to say, because I can do maths, I kind of like maths. Then they sort of know their maths. They know it here, they know the maths there, they know the maths here in their tummy, so it's instinctive. I just know my answer's right. And then above all, they know the answer here.
My name is Jamie Adonis, and my mother used to do maths with children. So she was one of the math moms, and that has really helped me with my maths because she has actually started to believe in herself and believe that she could help me. She never really gave us the answers. She would just help us, like, as to a distance that it would let us get the answers.
Indawo engihlala kuyo iyahlukumezeka kakhulu. Inezinto ezininzi like i-crime ne-violence, yonke laa nto iyenzeka phaa kuthi. So ndiyazama ngakho konke endinako ukuthi ndincede abantu ngokulunga kwam. Ukulunga kwam ndiyathetha nabo, ndibasondeze kum le ndlela ndithanda ngayo ukuthi i-community yam iphile ngayo. But ndiyabawela ukuthi ndiyazi ukuthi singenza ntoni ukuze sikhuseleke kule ndawo sihlala kuyo, ngoba asinalo ukhuseleko. Ndiyazama ngamandla onke am ukuthi ndincedane nabo.
I would say to people in this conference on crime, don't underestimate the power of your example. Don't underestimate the power of your intervention. So be that link in the chain. Understand that you could be. And today I'm able to teach, and I have taught tens of thousands of students just because there was somebody in the chain that wouldn't break. Don't underestimate your partner in the lives of young people.
The most important things we learn are not contained in the official curricula set by governments or limited to what our teachers are required to teach us. As author Nancy Klein wrote, teachers also teach themselves. They show learners who they are through their teaching. And our math moms, the teachers, principals, community leaders that we saw, and the countless adults in communities across the world who in some way offer care and security for vulnerable children are teaching themselves. They are showing children how to be in the world and how to be good in the world. Such lives are infinite, for as Klein writes, you don't have to be alive to keep teaching if you have taught your life while you lived.